Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust podcast brought to you by Yoshimura. This is a mid-season update, but one thing does not change. Our support from Yoshimura, but they did change their website. Yoshimura-rd.com is all new. You can purchase things directly through the site. It looks a lot cleaner and cooler. Do you ever notice that whenever anyone says they like the looks of something, they always say clean. They always say, I like it, man. It's just a good, clean look, whether it's riding gear or websites. In the past, it would have been magazine designs. I guess a few people still weigh in on that. They always say cleaner is better. But why then is not everything designed clean? I don't get it. There is a apparently very large but not vocal majority out there that likes things not clean. Isn't that weird? Okay, so at the beginning of Monster Energy Supercross for 2019, I kind of went on a rant about 2 days before Anaheim won, maybe 20-some minutes of thoughts on the upcoming season. And we are about to reach the halfway mark of 2019 right now. That'll be in Atlanta. So let's talk about the season as it is. And there's so many topics to hit because this has been a dream season. Each week, we are going through the record books to find out, have the points ever been this close after round X? And the answer is no, not ever. They're never this close. Certainly not this close between four riders. 13 points separating four of them as we get to the halfway point of the season. It never works out this way. It's what we always want. So this is amazing, and we have to celebrate it. And I'm going to celebrate it with a podcast. And you're going to celebrate it by listening to a podcast. A few other shout-outs I want to throw out here. SupercrossFutures.com. You know all about the Supercross amateur program that debuted last year. It has now taken the place of Amsoil Arena Cross as the place to get your points to become a professional Supercross rider and get your license. A lot of big names have already done so this year. Joe Shimoda has gone through. Dustin Winters, Seth Hamaker, Pierce Brown. They have earned their points at the amateur races this year. There are a lot of upcoming events. You can go to Indy. You can go to Nashville, Denver. It'll all end up at the season finale in Vegas, and then there'll be one last race in Vegas after Monster Cup in October, and that's where AMA National Amateur Champions for Supercross will be crowned. So SupercrossFutures.com, check it out. And, of course, RacerXBrand.com, 20% off your order if you type in exhaust in all caps. And RacerX Illustrated, the magazine. But we have a new digital style of the magazine just about to launch. Be ready. It's going to blow your mind. But let's talk racing here in this edition of the podcast. Well, maybe we'll sing a bit too. Podcast. 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 All right, we're ready for our show. Cooper Webb leads the points. Now, I didn't go back and listen to the podcast that I did before the season began, but I am sure that I did not predict that this would happen. This is a bizarre circumstance. Cooper Webb in one of the all-time comebacks, one of the all-time Renaissance rides. Now, look, Ken Roczen is just a mighty example of riders coming back from injury, going from the heights, dropping down to the depths, and coming back. This Cooper Webb story is totally different. He basically went from not riding well to riding really well. Yes, he had some injuries last year, and he blamed the injuries, but as we now know, I think he was just using that as cover. He knew things weren't right with the Yamaha, his training program, everything, and he just kind of blamed the injuries. Look, dude, these weren't massive injuries. And in between the injuries, we never really saw anything that would indicate this type of Cooper Webb was available at the races. We saw it in the 250 class. But what does that really mean? We've seen it from tons of riders in the 250 class. And once you struggle the first year or two on the big bike, and you're a smaller guy like Webb, here comes the Monday morning quarterback armchair analysis. And I think a lot of people were just thinking, he's just not up to that level. He's just not elite enough to take on Anderson and Tomac and Roczen and Musquin. Or maybe he's too small. Or maybe he's too lazy. Or maybe he doesn't have the home life in order, or maybe he's partying, or maybe he's slacked off, or maybe the fire that carried him into the 250 class has changed him. Who knows, man? But we heard every single reason, And with good reason, because, again, the injuries weren't massive. They were there, but at the same time, if Cooper Webb had been winning races like Ken Roczen and then got hurt, it would be a different story. We really didn't see any signs of this Cooper Webb at all in 2017 or 2018. Now he is the elitist of the elite. He's won the most races this year, and he has the points lead. Now it seems kind of normal. Once you win 2, what's the difference, 3 or 4? This is not normal. I just want to stop right now and think about how crazy it is that Cooper Webb is the points leader halfway through the year. There is a distinct possibility that Cooper Webb is your Monster Energy Supercross champion when this year is up. Does that make any sense? I mean, is that crazy? And you have to tip your cap, yes, to KTM, and yes, to Aldon Baker. They get a lot of caps tipped toward them, but this is just another one. For whatever reason, Aldon doesn't have universal approval. I'd say it's like 80 or 90%. We'll say this guy's really good at his job, and he's an amazing trainer, and he does amazing things. I'd say it's 80 or 90% of the time. But there are dissenters. You cannot satisfy everyone. And the main detraction with Aldon has always been, all he does is take winners and make them winners. Look, dude, we know Cooper Webb has talent. He's a winner as far as talent and potential goes. But he went from a 9th place rider to a 1st place rider after working with Aldon for 3 months. That is priceless. So the next time I hear anyone say Aldon's getting rich, Aldon's raking it in, Aldon makes so much money, dude, this is why. This is why. I can pretty much guarantee you already that the exorbitant amount of money that Cooper Webb has to pay Aldon Baker, he's already made that money back. He's won 4 races. He's in contention for titles. His next contract will be a lot bigger because he's reestablished himself. Cooper Webb's good to go. Aldon Baker's good to go. Don't rock that boat. This is amazing. So that's a real theme for me this year, the Cooper Webb shocker. And I'm impressed not just with the performance that he put in Arlington. That was amazing. Yes, he came from 7th to 1st, and you're not supposed to be able to do that. I was pumped to see it because earlier in the day we had our Fly Racing pre-race show in the pits, myself, Mathis JT, and Weston Pike. And Pike came on and said, the track's easy. It's all about starts. A bunch of other people came up. I think Andrew Short, he told us it's about starts. JT said it's about starts. Mathis said it's about starts. Everybody said it's about starts. I hear this all the time. The field is so close. You can't come through the pack. It's impossible. I don't like hearing those things. Yes, the start is important. I'm not saying it's not. But what gets me mad about when I hear this starts thing is that we are basically insulting what the actual job is, which is to ride a motorcycle fast, to not crash, and to not fade, to not get tired. All of those things get taken for granted if you're going to say the entire race comes down to the start. And Cooper Webb proved it. He didn't get the start. And on a night where everyone said you'd have to get the start, he didn't get the start, and he won the race because he rode better. I just don't like dismissing all the things that go on, tracks breaking down and bike setup and fitness and making a mistake, which makes you more tired, and staying cool under pressure and not getting arm pump and staying loose instead of getting tight, as the riders like to say. All of those things, all this work that goes on during the week and on the race day, to say that it's just really about the start and everyone can do the exact same thing. No, they don't. They don't. If they all rode the same speed, they'd all come over the finish line, 14 or 15 guys, bang, 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 bang. Do they? They don't. Not just about starts. And Cooper proved that in a big way. The win at Arlington was, according to the record books, we think the closest finish ever. But regardless of if there was some race maybe in 1981 that was closer, and I don't think there was, but if there was, it doesn't diminish the accomplishment of what he did. It would be one thing if he stalked someone for an entire race and then passed him in the last turn, but coming from behind, like he did, reeling those riders in, busting out a quad late in the race, that was a real sign. I actually feel like Detroit was just as big a sign. He was not the same guy. He was not as good. Now, I've heard a lot about KTMs in the whoops this year. Maybe if we had skimming whoops, I don't know where Marvin and Cooper would be, but we haven't had skimming whoops. Most of the tracks have turned into jumping whoops. It's a magical combination of, we had almost terrible weather in almost every place we've gone to. And that leads to the whoops being soft, and then they get rutted, and they get grooved, and it's safer and easier to jump them. And Cooper and Marvin are really good at that. So that's helped them. Whoops were tough, legitimately tough at Glendale. Cooper and Marvin weren't so good there. Whoops were legitimately tough in Detroit. Cooper and Marvin weren't so good there. But the whoops started to break down throughout the Triple Crown format. Webb got better. And also, he did something that he also said he did after Glendale. This is amazing. You never hear riders say this. He was tinkering around with the bike, trying to make changes, trying to figure out how to make the bike better. And then he finally said, you know what? I just go back to the old settings. It's on me. I've got to get through the whoops better. And along the way, in the first and second Triple Crown races, Eli Tomac blew by him. And what did Cooper say? He learned from it. I was really wondering when Eli went blowing by him in the whoops in the first race if that was going to be demoralizing. Kind of like a, hey, don't get too far ahead of yourself, kid. I'm still the fastest guy in this class from Tomac. But Webb used it to learn. He figured out a few things Eli was doing in the whoops. It made him better. As the whoops broke down, he got better. He was never the best guy in the whoops, but he went from terrible to acceptable late in the day. And lo and behold, there we were, halfway through the final Triple Crown main event. Tomac was in the back after a bad start and a mistake, and Cooper Webb was in position to win the overall, to win the race on a night where he was absolutely subpar. Now, Tomac came through and ended up getting the win, but a second-place finish when Webb was ninth fastest in practice, when he was struggling so bad in the whoops, when he was tinkering with the motorcycle and it wasn't working, that speaks volumes right there. Cooper has always been a super smart rider. I wrote about this in a column that we posted on racerxonline.com yesterday. He's always been smart in a way that I don't see most riders apply themselves. I don't mean just smart during a race or how he figures out lines or how to make passes. There's a lot of riders that are good at that. I've seen very few riders who can start the day off so bad, learn, apply the lesson, and then be good by the end of the day when it counts. Where I really saw it was at the USGP in Charlotte 3 years ago. It was a big showdown. You had Webb, you had Hurlings on 250s, and Webb was way off the pace on Saturday, the practice and qualifying race day. And in warm-up, Sunday morning, still off the pace. End of the first moto, he led Hurlings. Austin Forkner went down. Webb got held up. Hurlings got around him. But then Hurlings pulled away. And at that point, I said, I guess that's just it. I mean, Hurlings is just faster. And this is our American national champ, and Hurlings is better. And then Webb got a bad start in the second moto, and it was a track that you really couldn't pass on. Starts matter. It's all about starts. And what did Webb do? At this Charlotte USGP, he came from, back three quarters of the way through the pack. Not last, but darn close. And ran everyone down, including Jeffrey Hurlings. And he went 2-1 and won the overall. Catching and passing Jeffrey Hurlings never happens. That was unbelievable. A lot of the European media was there, and they're like, you don't understand. We haven't seen anyone beat Jeffrey straight up in years. That was obviously impressive. But was most impressive to me was where Webb was 24 hours earlier. He wasn't even close. He was like 3 seconds a lap off. And he somehow, as he said, had to learn to apply everything he learned and make it happen in the heat of battle. Cooper Webb is one of the few riders who's better during the race than he is during the week. So many people, you'll hear it from trainers and coaches and team managers, they're like, if I could just get the guy to ride on Saturday like what we see on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday when he rides at the test track, it'd be unbelievable. Webb is the opposite. Aldon and the crew have had to coach him up to ride harder and ride better during the week. They've gotten the lap times out of him now, the intensity during the week. That's upped his game a bit. That's helped him, I'm sure, and he's in better shape, I'm sure. He obviously likes the KTM, I'm sure. He's just coupling those things to get him back to his old level, and then when the race starts, that last extra percentage, that's the old Cooper Webb instincts. Figuring things out, learning how the race goes as the race goes on. And by the way, his starts are really good. I know that starts don't matter much. They're going to help. I'm not saying that they don't. I know I just went on a rant about it. I'm not saying that you don't need to get good starts. But what I am saying is when you don't get them, you've got to make something out of them. And you can't just get a whole shot and expect that that's going to automatically result in winning the race. But as far as starts are concerned, Webb's have been much better than ever before. He wasn't a good starter in the 250 class. He wasn't a good starter the last year in the 450s. He's been the best starter so far this year. There is definitely something special with the KTMs. Now, also talking to his mechanic, Carlos Rivera, who of course worked for Davey Millsaps and Ryan Dungey. Carlos is obsessed with starts. Every single practice start that Cooper does during the week down at Baker's factory in Florida, the practice mechanic has to video it and send it to Carlos so he can analyze it. Much more than just spinning the wrenches. He's actually, as Cooper said, part of his actual riding posture and technique off the line. And Carlos is always there to remind him of the things. They have turned a bad starter into a good starter on average, and that's helped. But we have now seen Cooper on a night where he got a bad start, win a race. And we've now seen Cooper on a night where he wasn't the fastest, get second, and almost win the race. That's going to make it tough on everyone else. Yes, imagine this. Cooper Webb could be Monster Energy Supercross champion at the end of the season. But we don't know for sure. We don't. Because it's only 13 points separating 4 riders. We never see this. So let's talk about some of the other riders. Why is this racing so good? Why is this racing so exciting? It's so close. I'll tell you why. Normally in this sport, you get a dominant run by someone. We've been waiting for ages to get to that 1984, 1985 type level where there's 12 different riders that can win every weekend. You know, there were actual years in the 80s where not a single rider had even as much as a 2-race win streak. Well, we wait for that. But it never happens because inevitably someone establishes themselves as the best rider or the best riders. So I don't care if it's Ricky Johnson, Jeff Ward, or Jean-Michel Bell, Jeff Stanton, Damon Bradshaw, or Jeremy McGrath forever, or Ricky Carmichael forever, then some Chad Reed and James Stewart, and then Ryan Dungey and Ryan Villapoto. That's it right there. I just named like all the guys that won races for 35 years, right? It was all eras. 2 guys, maybe 3, that can win a bunch of races. Well, it was supposed to happen again. In my mind, there's no doubt this should be the Eli Tomac and Ken Roczen era. They have the most talent. They have the most speed. They have the best pedigree. It was supposed to be them. You saw it from the 250 class. We saw what they were able to do as soon as they jumped on 450s. They were winning races very quickly. These guys are amazing. These guys are good. It should be Roczen versus Tomac every weekend, just like it was Reed and Stu, or Reed and Carmichael, or Johnson and Ward, or anything like that. That's the way it should be. But they messed it up. Kenny got hurt. He's back. He's good. He's not dominating, though, but he's definitely good. But I think it's safe to say that this isn't quite the Ken Roczen we probably would have seen if not for those arm injuries the last 2 years. And then Eli Tomac. Every time, and I mean, this is going on for like 7 or 8 years now, every time we think he's finally got it and he's going to start dominating and being the fastest guy every weekend, winning titles in a route every season, no problem, like the legends of the past, he throws out a stinker, and that's what we got in Arlington. So between Tomac not being able to just close it down, Tomac only being the best guy like 90% of the time instead of 100% of the time. And between that and Roczen getting hurt, it leaves the door open. We could have had a dominant run for the last 3 or 4 years by these two, or maybe just by one of them. But they didn't do it. Jason Anderson took advantage, won a title last year, didn't have to deal with either one of them because Kenny got hurt and Eli crashed himself out of it immediately. Before that, Ryan Dungey was aces. He was amazing in 2015. He was really good. In 2016, he was even better. We all know in 2017, for sure, Tomac was faster, but he didn't win the title. He didn't dominate it either. He won the most races by far, but he never had this giant points lead. Those two, I think, should be the best. It should be their era. I'm waiting for it to be their era. They haven't taken advantage, and that's why Jason Anderson won the title last year, and that's why Cooper Webb is where he is this year, and it is dangerous. You give any of these guys that little bit of confidence, and now you've got something difficult to deal with. I don't think Cooper Webb, as much as he's still going to try to play the underdog game this year, I don't think he's worried necessarily about Kenny and Eli like he could have been if they did what they were supposed to do the last couple of years. But it is still cool that they're in it. It's actually cooler, to be honest, because it's not allowing anyone to get to that dominant level that we would expect. So it's made for a much more exciting, much more fun to watch season this year. And I have to say that it's different how these riders are playing it. Ken Roczen was going for it last year. He got passed by, ironically, Cooper Webb. tried to get him back, and crashed and hurt himself. That literally hurt, but it hurt more than just his arm. He had done so much work to come back, Ken Roczen, with the one arm. Hurting this one, that took him down into the depths. And I don't think he's gotten over that. Maybe physically, the arm from last year might be okay. But mentally, you just see it. When they get to a fork in the road in the races, when there's a 50-50 chance that things are going to go one way or another, Kenny's going to take the high road. He's going to play it cautious with good reason. He hasn't gotten through the season in either of the last 2 years. He's just playing the long game right now. And that's great because he's right there in the points hunt. It's certainly more successful than the previous 2 years were. But at the same time, it's got to be frustrating for him. There are definitely moments, I believe, when he comes off the track and he's like, if I had just done A, B, or C differently, this win would have been mine. And those experiences are starting to stack up. The Ken Roczen, I almost won, I could have won, I should have won. But that little edge, I think, of I cannot get hurt, I have to play this smart. We all act like these riders are robots and they can just tune it to 95% and back it down. It's really hard to do that on the fly. It's really hard to do it absolutely right. And Kenny's definitely in the ballpark. He's close. He's right there in the title hunt. But man, the not getting the victories, what he had to deal with emotionally from being 0.023 seconds away from winning in Dallas, that really had to hurt. And he's doing a great job at resetting himself, coming to the post-race press conferences, not crying in front of the public, not pouting, reminding himself, look, man, I'm still healthy, and that's the best news of all. But it's got to be so rough on him to go through this. And the good thing is I'm sure everyone around him is saying, it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter if you win the races. Just stay in it. Stay in it. You're right there for the championship, and that's all that really matters. But it's impossible to be any closer than he has been. Could have been his era. It's never going to be, I think, a Ken Roczen wins 12 out of 17 races and dominates the championship type deal like maybe we had pegged for him a couple of years ago. I don't think we're ever going to get to that level of Ken Roczen, but it is awesome what he's done, and this comeback is great, and we should celebrate the fact that he's in it. Like right now, Ken Roczen is still in it. That is great. Not something to be taken for granted now. But, it's just got to hurt so bad to know what you could be doing and to know that it's you just can't quite do it because you don't want to take the risks, the high-flying risks that cost him the last couple of years. And then we get to Marvin Musquin. So, Marv, this is strange. I know that everyone's saying that this is a building process for Marv. He did have a rough offseason. This is interesting. I talked to Marv and his mechanic, Frankie Latham, and they told me that Marv and his wife, they went to Frankie's house on Christmas because they don't really have any French family in the United States. Frankie's and his wife and kids are pretty much their family. So they go over there for Christmas. And it's like Uncle Marv with Frankie's kids. And they said it was a fun day, but also it was a little weird because at that point they did not know if Marvin could even race Anaheim 1. That's how serious this knee injury was. I mean, Anaheim 1 is what? That's like 12 days after Christmas? So Marv didn't know if he could race at all. Frankie didn't know if he could race at all. Considering that, Marv is doing awesome. But this is interesting to me. Cooper Webb's first win was Anaheim 2. Marv almost beat him there. He caught him in the second main event. He finished behind him in the first main event. Caught him in the second main event, made a mistake, and lost ground. He was catching him. That gave Webb the cushion where he didn't have to beat Webb in the third main event. Webb had the cushion where he didn't have to beat Marv in the third main event. He let Marv go. Marv was 49% better than Webb that night. He just barely didn't get it. It looked like a dominant win for Webb because it was so spectacular the way he beat Roczen in the first race. But Marv was just as fast in the first race, faster in the second race, arguably better in the third race. Next week, go to Oakland. Guess what? Marv crashes from second, comes all the way back, starts matter, comes all the way back. He catches Cooper on the last lap, and that was actually an historically close finish as well. Those 2 weeks, I feel that Marv was better than Webb. But guess what? He didn't win those races. And now Webb's got a ton of confidence. Now Webb has 4 wins, and Marv not only doesn't have any wins, but since then, Cooper has actually edged away. Cooper caught him, passed him, left him in Arlington. They both were struggling in Detroit. Cooper did a better job of managing that and still getting on the podium. Marvin Musquin is one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And this is what his politeness has gotten him. Cooper Webb was straight up nasty to him back in their 250 days. I mean, he was downright disrespectful. That's the way Cooper Webb operated in those days. He did everything he could to get in Marvin's head. And a couple years later, Cooper comes back, hat in hand. My career's not going well. I want to work with Aldon. I want to be your teammate on KTM. I don't know if Marvin had a vote or a choice, but he accepted it. He came in. They're definitely riding together. I'm sure they're talking together. I'm sure he's being cordial and nice and polite. And what Marv is getting for that is now beaten at the races. So that's got to sting a little bit too. I don't really buy much into this. There's drama at the Baker's factory because these guys beat each other and it gets everybody mad. Somebody texted me today and said, ooh, what happens when Anderson comes back and Cooper Webb's the man? We don't have any proof that stuff is ever a problem. I know that Marvin and Anderson had their issues last year and they didn't want to ride together, but I think that was, I don't want to say overblown. Like that was a legit thing, but they're both still there. They're both still there. It didn't lead to this cannot work. They both stayed. They both continued to elevate their games. You could probably say that both had the best season of their career last year. So it still works. It still works. So I don't think it's just they have to work together at Baker's factory and who's the man drama only. It's just, for Marv, I think it's more, I'll continue to work with this guy. I'll continue to ride with this guy, but I can't believe it. I can't believe he just leapfrogged me. I think he's more bummed on that or himself or his own situation. I don't think he's mad at Aldon or Cooper or there's beef between he and Cooper. I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't think there's beef between the riders. But Marv still has to be bummed out. It's been a while now since Marv has won a race, and Cooper's taken over. But we'll see. These guys are all on the points hunt. Tomac's there. Kenny's there. Marvin's there. It could all change in a hurry. But don't forget, Cooper Webb has won championships before. I know it's only in the 250 class, but he has managed these things before. He's not known as a crazy crasher. It could happen to him. It could happen to anyone. But if he keeps getting good starts, that reduces the risk significantly. We will see how this goes. It's so awesome to truly not know. And we're going to Atlanta, always a pivotal round. I want to talk a little bit about what Kenny has going. We talk so much about Baker's factory, Baker's factory, Baker's factory, Baker's factory. Now, Kenny used to be there. He left. And I think, at first that got painted as I think Kenny's just too lazy. He didn't want to do the work. I think we now know that Kenny works hard. Kenny is a hard worker. He is dedicated. Maybe in his younger days, he kind of did some of the work, but he ate whatever and liked to have fun and keep it loose program. But I think now he's a dedicated athlete through and through. I think one of the big differences between Kenny and a lot of the other riders at Baker's is that Kenny doesn't need the confidence boost that comes with working with Aldon Baker. Aldon is as much of a mental guy as a physical guy, and I don't mean that he's a psychiatrist where they have to pay him $500 an hour laying in a leather couch, but he is there through and through for his riders, and he manages so many aspects for them. And also, the program is so hard. You'll hear a lot of athletes say when you work that hard, it gives you confidence. It makes it impossible to be negative. When you get on that airplane on Friday and you busted your ass so hard Monday through Thursday, you're all fired up like, yeah, I'm coming to win. I don't think Ken Roczen needs any of that. He's as mentally tough as probably any rider that has ever competed in this sport. So I think Kenny is able to just do his own thing, and he doesn't need to say, oh, I'm doing the program previous champions have used, so I must be good. He just knows he's good. And I've also heard a theory that some of the European riders, by the way, are better at doing their own testing, doing their own riding, putting together their own program. Remember, on the American side these days, things have gotten pretty homogenized. There's a pretty simple program that you go through. You get support, and you go to a training facility, and you work with a coach and work with a trainer. Maybe your bikes, you don't have to test. They just send stuff to you and say, use this, use that. you're still somewhat out there in the hinterlands. I've seen videos of Kenny where he grew up riding and Marvin where he grew up riding. Dude, these are not spectacular places. This is like a muddy field in France where Marvin's doing his work. And I can't even imagine what the weather was like at times in Germany where Kenny came up. And it was just him and his dad. And many people have said, look, the Euro guys, it's just them and their dad in a field, and they've got to figure out how to make this motorcycle work. They got to figure out what training works. They got to figure out what riding technique works. They're not surrounded by ex-champions and training facilities and all these coaches and team people. So I think that is why Kenny's able to make this Moto Sandbox thing work. He's got his own deal. He knows what he needs to do. He's not worried about, if I don't have the Aldon Baker program, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I think with Ryan Dungey, for example, that was in the back of his mind all the time. Do I need to do more? Do I need to do less? Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right things? And then once he got locked in with Aldon, who there are no compromises. It's Aldon just saying, this is what you do. Don't even question it. That worked awesome for Dunge. You could see it in every aspect of Dungey, just not the results on the track. He was more forthright and forthcoming and relaxed and comfortable at the races because I don't think he was second-guessing himself anymore. Ryan Dungey, eve of 2017, going for his third straight title, when Ken Roczen was coming in like a house of fire. I swear Ryan was like the most relaxed human at Angel Stadium the day before the race, the big press conference. He wasn't worried about anything. And that was because he had banked all this time with the Baker program and felt that he had done the right things. I don't think Ken Roczen needs any of that. So the Moto Sandbox thing, I think it's a little looser. I think it's a little more fun. He's got a really great group of guys that he rides there with. Sometimes his fellow Honda guys like Seeley will come down, or Christian Craig. He's riding on the daily with Alex Martin and Chase Sexton. I know he gives those guys a lot of tips. He gives them a lot of crap. They give him a lot of crap. They mess with each other. And he just knows what he's doing and doesn't need as much guidance. So maybe the program is looser. I'm not even going to say maybe. I can guarantee you Kenny's program is a little bit looser as far as the diet and things like that. But he's working hard and maybe just as hard. He's just doesn't need the mental backing that comes with someone saying, do this, do that, do this, and it equals this. And I don't think now we can find any fault in the direction Ken went. I think maybe, look, the results fell off pretty quick as soon as he left Aldon's a couple of years ago. He cycled through some different trainers. I think he took a while to find what works for him, but he's got it now. I don't think there's any problems with Kenny's program at the Moto Sandbox. And I guarantee you that he and Eli Tomac and Eli Tomac's dad, John, are sick and tired of people talking about the Aldon Baker program. But guess what? You're going to hear more. Because Cooper Webb went from a 9th place rider to a 1st place rider while he was there. So that's Supercross right now, the awesome 450 class. Sorry about that. Atlanta's going to be great because of the showdown in the 450s and the showdown in the 250s, which I'll talk about in just a second. Eli Tomac. Can we just talk about this? He threw out another Eli being Eli terrible race at Arlington. It starts the debate anew. What's the deal? How can this guy be so good one weekend and so bad another weekend? How is this possible? Everyone has theories. Most of them focus on he's not clutch or it's pressure, all these things. I got a new theory. Look, I know that Eli Tomac is unbelievably freaking fast, okay? And he does huge jumps, and he's just beast mode on the motorcycle. He goes fast by hammering it. He doesn't go fast because he's a technician or because he's smooth or calculated. He, when he's on top of his game, is fearless. He appears fearless. So this is not going to compute, but hear me out. I think Eli is fearless until he goes down. Even a small crash. I think he's afraid of getting hurt. I don't think he's a wild, I'm willing to crash to win guy like James Stewart. He gets compared to James Stewart nowadays only because they both have a, if he doesn't crash, he wins kind of record going, and because he's badass fast like James Stewart was. But dude, James Stewart was not afraid to crash. He'd get right back on the motorcycle after some hellacious hits. When Eli Tomac hits the ground, he takes inventory. He gets up slow. He's trying to figure out, am I hurt? Am I not hurt? And then he doesn't ride the same again. And he has not been injured very much. I was shocked to hear he was on the Whiskey Throttle podcast with Ping. And he said when he had the shoulder injuries, 2015 Colorado National, first surgery he ever had. I don't think he liked it. He doesn't want to have another one. I think he doesn't want to get hurt, and that's a huge reality check when he hits the ground, and then he's not the same person after that. And also we've heard Mathis talk to his dad, John. Eli has said when the bike is not where he wants it, he can't just hammer through it. He gets tight, and he gets pumped up, and we've seen that time and time again. He appears to be a guy that just hangs throttle cable and doesn't care about the consequences. I actually don't think he's like that, and that's what makes this so hard to understand. It's a different Eli Tomac than he appears to be on the surface. He always has this intimidating stare, this icy glow about him. I don't think he's quite as gnarly as he looks, and when he hits the ground, things change in a hurry. Now, when he gets the bike right and he doesn't hit the ground, well, he's also in a hurry, and we saw it. He was the best guy, for sure, at Detroit. He was the best guy in San Diego, but that was a mud race. They made some bike changes before San Diego. We thought that was going to set him up for a dominant run. It didn't happen. It got derailed at Arlington. More bike changes for Detroit. Dominant guy there. Once again, we ask, is it time for Eli Tomac to take control? He absolutely can. But we've been saying this for years. They've left the window open. The world was there for Roczen. The world was there for Tomac. They haven't gotten it done. And it's given other riders opportunities. So much on the line this weekend in Atlanta. If Tomac goes out there and rolls it, ooh, that's scary. If he struggles again, that's obviously pivotal as well. Let's talk real quick about the really cool part of Atlanta. We've got the East-West Showdown. Showdown, folks. They're not called shootouts anymore. I'll tell you what, the folks at Feld Entertainment, that was a great move. No one even realizes this. They changed the name from Shootout to Showdown a few years ago. And I was like, why? They're like, yeah, in today's climate, shootout, probably not a great term to use. And, like lo and behold, like a few months later, there was that huge, horrible, disgusting, tragic mass shooting at Las Vegas, in fact. Yeah, that's true. Showdown, a much better name than shootout in today's climate. So it's actually the East-West Showdown. And I don't even know. I don't even know where to go with this. Look, we know the points leaders are Adam Cianciarulo in the West, and in the East, it's Austin Forkner. Cianciarulo's been really good the last two races. He's won them on the West. But Forkner has been nigh unto unbeatable. Literally unbeatable. He's won the first three East races. He's been the fastest qualifier. He has led all but one lap. He made a mistake two turns before the finish line at Detroit. He got passed. One turn after the finish line, Jordan Smith made a mistake. Forkner got by. So he has led for all but three corners this year. It's the Forkner that we knew could happen. The dude has badass speed and talent. He's kind of scary to watch in practice when he's trying to put in a hot lap, but in the races, he's been good. I'm sure that Forkner and Cianciarulo are going to be asked about racing each other this weekend. And I'm sure that Forkner and Cianciarulo are going to say, it doesn't matter. This has nothing to do with anything. They just want to win the race. They're not worried about their teammate. They're not worried about a guy that doesn't race their coast. That's not true. That's not true. Deep down inside, these are two high-profile amateurs. I'm sure Cianciarulo sees a little bit of, that was supposed to be me. I was supposed to be making moves toward championships a lot earlier in my career like Forkner is doing now. And they both want to beat each other. They both want to be the best guy on the team. They got a little bit of that competitiveness in them. So I'm sure they're thinking about each other while they say that they're not. But this is crazy. The East has run 3 races in a row. The West has only been off for 3. I don't think that's long enough to make a huge, huge difference. So it's fairly even-Steven. If these two riders get off the line together, and they've been good starters as of late, if they get off the line together, there are going to be no excuses. This is going to be crazy. And also, what if an East or West rider gets into a battle with each other and somebody goes down and costs themselves a lot of points? These are relatively short series. If you mess something up at a race like this and you end up getting 12th, which is certainly possible in this field, it might be a hole that you cannot dig yourself out of. So, really fast guys in the West, really fast guys in the East. I'm curious to see. A couple guys in the West. We'll start with the Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha riders. Colt Nichols on fire early, held the points lead for a while. Colt Nichols is a really good rider, but he has now run into the prime Adam Cianciarulo that we've been waiting for years. We know Cianciarulo's ceiling is very high. Can Nichols fight back against that? Or are we now entering the This is what Cianciarulo is supposed to do. He's supposed to win races and win titles, kind of like we thought we'd be seeing from Roczen and Tomac in the 450 class. Can Nichols fight back? Dylan Ferrandis. Are we getting to the point where there's something wrong here? Like the guy rides so well and somehow the wins don't come. I could see this being the type of weekend where he wins. A lot of times these East-West races go to who you wouldn't expect. Last year's winner at the mid-season East-West in Indy, Jeremy Martin. A lot of the history of the East-West shootouts, now showdowns in Vegas, won by riders who didn't win championships that year. Sometimes things get crazy, they get chaotic, and someone's able to take advantage and win that. Could it be the weekend for Dylan Ferrandis? If it's not, I don't know how many times you can be the fastest rider and not win before we have to start saying something is wrong here. So we'll see about Ferrandis. Another rider to watch in the West, Shane McElrath. I had McElrath as my championship pick before the year began. He started the year not on fire, but at least consistent. But it has not been quite what I expected. He really rode well at Anaheim too. And a good comeback in a mud race in San Diego when he was down and an absolute last early. But it's not quite the same Shane McElrath as I expected to see this year. And since Cianciarulo is up this game, Ferrandis and Nichols have upped their game, this is a pivotal round, I believe, for McElrath to reestablish himself and also to take the opportunity to maybe grab some points. Same thing for his teammate, Jordan Smith. Jordan Smith is hanging on, man. He's got a bad wrist. Faulkner's been unbelievably fast. I think we've seen Chase Sexton and Jordan Smith are the two guys that can run the same speed as Faulkner, but just barely. They need everything to be perfect to keep him in sight. So they need a break, and I think it could come with this East-West race. Maybe Faulkner tries too hard. Maybe Faulkner finally blows the start and has a lot of riders to get through. I don't know if they're just going to be able to just straight up take it to Faulkner week in and week out and just beat him straight up and get a win streak. Faulkner's kind of next level right now. I think they can go as fast, but to beat him over and over, I don't know. But you don't always need to. You just need a big break in one race. That's often how these championships are decided, and an East-West could be the place where that happens. By the way, we haven't had the 250s, like I said, in a couple weeks. I'll just review the points. Cianciarulo has 114, McElrath 106, Nichols 104, Ferrandis 102. 12 points between those four. It's certainly in play. Heck, Ferrandis could somehow be the West points leader by the time Saturday night's race is over. It's really close and really fun to watch there. But I don't know. It's going to be impossible to ignore Adam versus Austin, the teammates on the same bikes, both holding red plates, both probably got a little bit of that youthful testosterone exuberance. Ooh, that is going to be interesting if they start together. That's going to be really fun. It's Atlanta, folks. Crown jewel event. It's awesome to throw in an East-West showdown in addition to this very close 450 championship in a premier event. I don't think we have a reading yet on the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and how that compares to the old Georgia Dome, which is Supercross legend, and even before that, Fulton County Stadium, which held some of the best Supercross battles ever. I don't know if it's quite the same. We're going to have outdoor pits, which we've never had in Atlanta. We don't know what kind of weather we're going to get. I don't know how that's going to affect the mood of the fans there, but in the past, at least, this has been an event with a huge crowd, and these people are super into it, and you take a close 450 battle, and you take an awesome East-West shootout with the points close on both coasts. It's going to be amazing. I just went 43 minutes in one take. That's how much stuff I have to talk about with Supercross right now. Thanks to Yoshimura-RD.com. Go to their website. It's new. You can order stuff there. It's all made in the USA. Yoshimura, check them out. Everything you need. 4-stroke exhaust systems for dirt bikes, ATVs, and street bikes. RacerXbrand.com. We've got hats, we got bags, we got swag, and we will give you 20% off using the code EXHAUST. We still do have the podcast t-shirt. It'll be worn by Justin Brayton. It is worn by Justin Brayton. He actually bought one with his own money. Can you believe that? I thought he was smart. Now I'm beginning to question his judgment. Hey, speaking of Justin Brayton, Mike Alessi will be back. Mike Alessi is back in Supercross this weekend. He will be Brayton's teammate, filling in for Vince Freese and also Malcolm Stewart, who's out for Smart Top's Bullfrog Spa's Moto Concepts. Yeah, Mike Alessi. How about that? Okay, he's got some bad memories of Atlanta. At least Brock Tickle won't be on the track for him to run into. A couple other things to mention. Supercross Futures, supercrossfutures.com. That's where you can get the schedule for all of the upcoming events as riders try to get points to earn their Supercross license, it's not just about that. It's also about the workaday riders. We got classes for kids, adults, everything in between, vet riders and whatnot. Get to ride on real Supercross tracks. I got another one coming up starting in Indy. Go to supercrossfutures.com. And we've got a vintage Supercross coming up at Daytona. What an awesome weekend it's going to be at Daytona. Awesome week, really. I'll be there Thursday to Thursday, starting with Supercross Press Day Friday morning, Supercross Pro Race Saturday, Carmichael Amateur Supercross Sunday, Monday, GNCC also on Sunday, Daytona Vintage Supercross on Tuesday, and American Flat Track kickoff, the Daytona TT on Thursday. And then I guess I'm going to have to somehow get to Indianapolis for the next Monster Energy Supercross round the next Friday. I love my job, man. I love it. Love talking to you folks. Hope you enjoyed it. That's a special edition of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. See you in the ATL.